Hello everyone. Welcome back to Easy Listening English. I have a challenge for you. Don't skip ahead. Don't leave after 5 minutes. Stay with me until the end of this lesson, because what you're about to experience is not a typical English class. Instead of random vocabulary lists and boring grammar drills, you're going to live through a complete English conversation journey, from meeting someone for the first time to becoming friends, making plans, exploring the city, talking about life, and saying goodbye naturally. Every lesson connects to the next like chapters in a story, and each new skill unlocks another piece of real-world communication. By the end, you'll realize that English isn't a collection of separate phrases. It's one continuous conversation. And today, that conversation begins with you. My name is Emily Carter, and I am an English teacher from the United States. I have spent many years helping students from different countries learn how to communicate naturally and confidently in English, and throughout this long learning journey, I have discovered one important truth. People rarely struggle because they do not know enough grammar. They struggle because they do not know how to start conversation comfortably. Today, in the first lesson of our 10-part English communication journey, I want to teach you one of the most important skills in real-life communication, the art of breaking the ice. We will explore natural greetings, self-introductions, and simple ways to keep a conversation moving forward. By the end of this lesson, you will understand how native speakers greet each other beyond the standard textbook phrases, and you will feel much more comfortable when meeting someone for the first time. I still remember my first day as a teacher in a language school in California. The classroom was full of nervous students from different parts of the world. Some smiled politely, some looked down at their desks, and others avoided eye contact completely. When I entered the room, I noticed something interesting. Most of them knew how to say hello and how are you? But very few knew what to say after that. The room felt frozen, almost as if everyone was waiting for someone else to take the first step. That experience taught me that communication is not only about vocabulary, it is also about confidence, timing, and human connection. Learning how to greet people naturally can transform an awkward silence into the beginning of a meaningful conversation. Many English learners believe that hello is always the best greeting. While it is certainly polite and useful, native speakers often use a much wider variety of expressions depending on the situation. Imagine that you are meeting a friend at a coffee shop. Instead of saying hello, you might hear, "How's it going?" or "What's up?" These expressions sound warmer, more relaxed, and more natural in casual settings. The phrase, "How's it going?" does not require a detailed answer. In most cases, a simple response such as "pretty good" or "not bad" is perfectly acceptable. Similarly, when someone says, "What's up?" they're not necessarily asking for important news. Often, they're simply greeting you and opening the door to further conversation. Understanding the emotional meaning behind these greetings is just as important as understanding the words themselves. Language is deeply connected to psychology. When someone asks, "How's it going?" they are often communicating friendliness rather than seeking information. If you answer naturally and confidently, you create a positive social atmosphere. For example, imagine someone says, "Hey, how's it going?" You could respond, "It's going well, thanks. How about you?" Notice how the conversation immediately continues because you return the question. This simple habit prevents the interaction from ending too quickly and shows genuine interest in the other person. One of the biggest mistakes learners make is treating conversations like interviews. They answer a question and then stop talking completely. Real conversations are more like a game of catch. One person throws the ball and the other person throws it back. If someone asks, "How are you?" and you simply reply, "Fine," the conversation may lose momentum. However, if you say, "I'm doing great today. How about you?" The exchange feels more balanced and engaging. Returning a question is one of the easiest ways to keep a conversation alive, and it is a skill that will help you throughout every future lesson in this course. Now let us imagine that we have already exchanged greetings and the conversation is moving smoothly. The next step is usually a basic self-introduction. In American culture, introducing yourself clearly and confidently is considered polite and approachable. A simple introduction often includes your name, your age in certain contexts, and your hometown. For example, I might say, "My name is Emily. I'm 32 years old, and I'm from Seattle." This introduction is simple, but it provides enough information to help the other person learn something about me. More importantly, it creates opportunities for follow-up questions and deeper discussion. Your hometown can become a surprisingly powerful conversation topic. When I tell people that I am from Seattle, many immediately think about coffee, rainy weather, or beautiful mountains. Suddenly, the conversation has several new directions it can take. The same principle applies to you. If you say, "I'm from Hanoi," someone may ask about Vietnamese food, local traditions, or famous places to visit. If you say, "I'm from a small town," people may become curious about what life is like there. A good introduction does more than provide facts. It creates possibilities for connection. As an English teacher, I often encourage students to practice introductions that sound natural rather than robotic. Instead of memorizing a rigid script, focus on expressing yourself comfortably. For instance, rather than saying, "My name is John. I am 25 years old. I come from New York," you could say, "Hi, I'm John. I'm 25, and I'm from New York." The second version sounds more conversational and relaxed. Native speakers tend to prefer language that flows naturally and reflects genuine personality. When your introduction sounds authentic, people are more likely to respond warmly. I remember meeting a student named Carlos during one of my workshops. He was extremely nervous about speaking English. When I asked him to introduce himself, he stared at the floor and spoke so quietly that nobody could hear him. After a little practice, however, he learned a simple pattern. He smiled, made eye contact, and said, "Hi, I'm Carlos. I'm from Mexico City. Nice to meet you." The transformation was remarkable. His classmates immediately smiled back and started asking questions. The lesson was clear. Confidence often grows after action, not before it. Sometimes all you need is one successful introduction to realize that communication is possible. Another valuable expression during introductions is, "Nice to meet you." Although it seems simple, it carries an important social function. It signals respect and friendliness. When someone says, "Nice to meet you," the expected response is usually, "Nice to meet you too." This brief exchange creates a positive emotional tone and helps both people feel more comfortable. In many situations, these small social rituals are just as important as grammar because they strengthen relationships and build trust between speakers. As conversations continue, curiosity naturally begins to replace nervousness. Once people know your name and where you come from, they often want to learn more. This is where active listening becomes important. Instead of focusing only on what you want to say next, pay attention to the other person's words. If someone says, "I'm from Chicago," you might respond, "That's interesting. What's it like there?" Questions like this show genuine interest and encourage the other person to share more. Good conversation is not about speaking constantly. It is about creating a comfortable exchange of ideas. One phrase that can help enormously is, "And you?" Despite being only 2 words, it is one of the most powerful tools in English conversation. Imagine someone asks, "Where are you from?" You answer, "I'm from Vietnam." And you? Immediately, the focus returns to the other person, creating balance in the interaction. Another useful variation is, "How about you?" This expression can be used after discussing almost any topic. If you say, I love reading books in my free time. How about you? The conversation naturally continues without feeling forced. There is also an emotional benefit to asking follow-up questions. People generally enjoy talking about themselves when they feel genuinely heard. By asking "and you?" or "how about you?" you communicate respect and interest. This creates a positive cycle. The more comfortable the other person feels, the more willing they are to continue the conversation. As trust develops, communication becomes easier and more enjoyable for everyone involved. Throughout my years of teaching, I have noticed that the most successful English learners are not necessarily the ones with the largest vocabularies. Often, they are the learners who understand how conversations flow. They know how to greet someone warmly, introduce themselves naturally, and return questions politely. These simple skills create a strong foundation for everything else. Without them, even advanced grammar knowledge may remain trapped inside silence. With them, however, meaningful communication becomes possible from the very beginning. As we reach the end of our first lesson together, I want you to picture a real-life situation. You walk into a cafe, a classroom, or a social event. Someone smiles and says, "Hey, how's it going?" Instead of freezing, you smile back and answer confidently. You introduce yourself, ask where they are from, and respond with genuine curiosity. The conversation begins to flow naturally. Suddenly, English is no longer a collection of rules in a textbook. It becomes a living bridge between two people. That transformation is the true purpose of language learning, and it is exactly where our journey begins. Of course, once names have been exchanged and greetings are comfortably behind us, the conversation should not simply stop. Real relationships grow when people continue discovering new things about one another. After learning where someone comes from and sharing a few friendly introductions, the next logical question usually appears almost automatically. People begin asking about work, careers, and daily responsibilities. What do you do for a living? Where do you work? Do you enjoy your job? These questions open an entirely new chapter of conversation, and in our next lesson we will step naturally into that world, exploring jobs, workplaces, and the language people use to talk about their professional lives every day. As we continue our journey together, I want to begin exactly where our previous lesson ended. In part 1, we learned how to greet people naturally, introduce ourselves, and keep conversations alive through simple but powerful questions. Once names have been exchanged and the first layer of nervousness has disappeared, people naturally become curious about each other's daily lives. In American culture, one of the most common ways to continue a conversation is by asking about work. Whether you are speaking with a new friend, a neighbor, a classmate, or even someone you have just met at a social event, the topic of occupations often appears surprisingly quickly. Today, I want to guide you through this important stage of conversation and help you learn how to talk comfortably about jobs, workplaces, and professional life. I remember attending a community gathering shortly after moving to a new city many years ago. I knew almost nobody there, and for a few moments I felt exactly like many of my students often feel. After exchanging greetings and introducing myself, someone smiled and asked, "So, what do you do for a living?" It was such a simple question, yet it instantly opened the door to a longer conversation. I explained that I was an English teacher, and within minutes we were discussing education, travel, and language learning. That experience reminded me how jobs often serve as conversational bridges that connect strangers and help them discover shared interests. One of the most useful questions you can learn is, "What do you do for a living?" Native speakers use this phrase regularly because it sounds natural, polite, and friendly. You may also hear variations such as, "What do you do?" or "What line of work are you in?" Although the wording changes slightly, the purpose remains the same. The speaker wants to learn about your profession and understand how you spend a large part of your daily life. Understanding these different versions will help you feel more confident when listening to real conversations. When answering this question, simplicity is often the key. For example, you might say, I'm a designer, I'm a nurse, I'm an engineer, or I'm a student. Another common pattern is I work in, followed by a field or industry. Someone might say, I work in marketing, I work in finance, or I work in education. Notice how these responses are clear and direct. Native speakers rarely try to impress others with complicated explanations during the first stages of a conversation. Instead, they provide enough information to invite further discussion. The psychological purpose of these exchanges is fascinating. When people ask about your work, they are usually not conducting an interview. They are searching for connection. Human beings naturally look for common experiences, shared challenges, and familiar interests. If someone says, I work in healthcare, another person might respond by talking about a relative who works at a hospital. If someone mentions working in technology, another person may become curious about computers or innovation. The job itself becomes a doorway to many other topics. As an English teacher, I often encourage my students to prepare several versions of their professional introduction. A short version might be, I'm a teacher. A slightly longer version could be, I'm an English teacher at a language school. An even more detailed version might be, I'm an English teacher and I help international students improve their communication skills. Each version serves a different purpose depending on the situation. The more comfortable you become with these variations, the more naturally you will speak. I still remember one student named Hannah who struggled whenever people asked about her job. She worked as a graphic designer, but every time she tried to explain her profession in English, she became nervous and started using complicated sentences. One day I suggested a simpler approach. Instead of giving a long explanation, she learned to say, I'm a graphic designer. I create visual content for companies. Suddenly, everything became easier. Her confidence improved because she no longer felt trapped by the need to sound perfect. Describing your workplace is another valuable skill. After introducing your profession, people often ask where you work or what your work environment is like. You might say, I work in an office downtown, I work from home, or I work in a busy hospital. These simple descriptions create vivid images in the listener's mind. They also provide opportunities for follow-up questions that help conversations continue naturally. The phrase, I work from home, has become especially common in recent years. When people hear it, they often become curious about your daily routine. They may ask whether you enjoy working remotely or whether you miss interacting with coworkers in person. Likewise, if you mention working in a large office, someone might ask about your team or company culture. Every answer creates new conversational pathways, making communication feel more dynamic and engaging. Feelings about work are equally important because jobs are not just sources of income. They are emotional experiences that affect our mood, energy, and identity. When discussing your profession, it is useful to express how you feel. You might say, I love my job. My work is challenging. It can be stressful sometimes. Or, I find it very rewarding. These phrases reveal something personal about your experience and make conversations more meaningful. Throughout my teaching career, I have noticed that conversations become more interesting when people move beyond facts and begin sharing emotions. Imagine someone says, I'm a software developer. That information is useful, but it remains somewhat distant. Now imagine a person says, I'm a software developer and I love solving difficult problems. Suddenly the conversation feels more human. We learn not only what the person does, but also how they feel about it. In American culture, it is common to discuss both the positive and difficult aspects of work. Someone might say, My job keeps me busy, but I enjoy helping people. Another person may admit, the workload can be stressful, but I have great coworkers. These balanced statements often sound authentic because they acknowledge reality. Most jobs contain both rewards and challenges, and discussing them honestly helps build trust between speakers. One phrase that appears frequently in workplace conversations is, "What's your typical day like?" This question invites the other person to describe daily responsibilities and routines. A teacher might explain, "I spend most of my day preparing lessons and working with students." A chef might say, "I cook, manage the kitchen, and create new menu items." A salesperson could respond, "I meet clients and help them find solutions." Questions like these encourage deeper conversation while expanding your vocabulary naturally. Listening carefully to answers is just as important as asking questions. If someone tells you about a busy schedule, you can respond with empathy. If they describe a rewarding career, you can show interest and enthusiasm. Expressions such as, "That sounds exciting," "That must be challenging," or "That sounds rewarding," demonstrate active listening. They also help conversations flow smoothly without awkward pauses. I often tell my students that successful communication is not about speaking continuously. Instead, it is about creating a comfortable rhythm between speaking and listening. During workplace discussions, this rhythm becomes especially important because people usually enjoy sharing stories about their professional experiences. By showing genuine curiosity, you encourage them to continue speaking while strengthening the connection between you. One of my former students worked as a firefighter, and he became one of the best conversationalists I had ever taught. Whenever someone asked about his profession, he would answer clearly and then return the focus to the other person. He might say, "I'm a firefighter. I help respond to emergencies. What about you?" That final question transformed a simple exchange into a balanced conversation. His example perfectly demonstrated the power of combining confidence with curiosity. As your English improves, you will notice that workplace conversations often reveal deeper aspects of personality. Some people value creativity, others value stability, and others are motivated by helping their communities. The language people use when discussing work frequently reflects these values. Paying attention to such details will improve both your listening skills and your cultural understanding. Of course, not everyone loves their job every day. There are moments when work feels exhausting, repetitive, or stressful. Learning to discuss these feelings politely is an important communication skill. You might say, "It's been a busy week. Work has been stressful lately," or "I'm looking forward to the weekend." These expressions are common because they acknowledge challenges without sounding overly negative. Interestingly, conversations about work often lead naturally toward another universal topic. After people discuss deadlines, responsibilities, achievements, and workplace stress, they frequently begin talking about how they relax and recharge. Someone might mention hiking, reading, cooking, traveling, or playing sports. The conversation gradually shifts away from professional life and toward personal interests. This transition happens so naturally that many people barely notice it. As we reach the end of this lesson, I want you to imagine yourself speaking confidently with a new acquaintance. You greet each other, exchange names, and discuss your professions. You describe your workplace, share your feelings about your job, and ask thoughtful questions in return. The conversation feels balanced, natural, and enjoyable. Most importantly, it does not stop there. After exchanging stories about daily responsibilities, workplace victories, and occasional frustrations, curiosity begins to move in a new direction. People naturally start wondering what each other does outside of work. How do they spend their weekends? What activities bring them joy? What passions fill their free time? Those questions will guide us seamlessly into the next chapter of our journey, where we will explore hobbies, personal interests, and the language people use when talking about the things they truly love doing when work is finally over. As we continue our journey together, I want to pick up exactly where our previous lesson left off. In part 2, we learned how to talk about professions, workplaces, daily responsibilities, and the emotions connected to our jobs. Those conversations help people understand how we spend our working hours, but they rarely reveal who we truly are beneath our professional identities. After discussing deadlines, meetings, responsibilities, and career goals, people naturally become curious about something more personal. They begin asking what brings us joy when work is over, how we spend our weekends, and what activities make us feel alive. Today, I want to guide you into the fascinating world of hobbies, passions, and personal interests, because these topics often transform ordinary conversations into genuine human connections. I have always believed that hobbies tell a deeper story than job titles. Over the years, I've met doctors who spent their weekends painting landscapes, engineers who wrote poetry late at night, and accountants who traveled hundreds of miles just to photograph birds in the wild. Whenever I heard these stories, I was reminded that people are far more complex and interesting than the labels attached to their professions. In conversations, discussing hobbies often reveals personality, values, dreams, and even childhood memories. This is one reason why native English speakers frequently shift from talking about work to talking about personal interests after the initial stages of a conversation. One of the most useful expressions for discussing interests is, "I'm into." This phrase sounds casual, natural, and extremely common in everyday English. Instead of saying, "I like photography," a person might say, "I'm really into photography these days." The second version often sounds more enthusiastic because it suggests active involvement and genuine passion. You might hear people say, "I'm into hiking," "I'm into video games," "I'm into fitness," or "I'm into learning languages." The phrase allows speakers to express interest while sounding relaxed and conversational. Another expression that appears frequently is, "I'm a big fan of." This phrase is especially useful when discussing activities, sports, books, movies, musicians, or hobbies that inspire strong enthusiasm. For example, someone might say, "I'm a big fan of jazz music," or "I'm a big fan of science fiction movies." The phrase communicates admiration and enjoyment while inviting further discussion. If a person hears that you are a big fan of something they also enjoy, the conversation can quickly become more animated and engaging. The emotional impact of shared interests should never be underestimated. Imagine meeting a stranger and discovering that both of you love the same type of music, enjoy the same sport, or follow the same hobby. Suddenly, the conversation becomes easier because you already have common ground. Psychologically, people feel more comfortable around others who share similar interests. This feeling creates trust, excitement, and curiosity, all of which contribute to stronger communication and more meaningful interactions. I remember attending a small community event in Seattle many years ago. After speaking with several people about work and daily life, I met a woman who mentioned that she enjoyed hiking. I casually replied, "I'm really into hiking too," and her face immediately lit up with enthusiasm. Within minutes, we were exchanging stories about mountain trails, beautiful views, unexpected weather changes, and memorable outdoor adventures. What began as a simple conversation between strangers quickly evolved into a lively discussion because we had discovered a shared passion. Experiences like that taught me an important lesson about language learning. Vocabulary is not merely a collection of words. Vocabulary is a collection of bridges that connect people. When you learn how to express your interests clearly, you give others an opportunity to relate to you. A simple statement such as, "I'm into cooking," may inspire someone to share recipes, restaurant recommendations, or family traditions. Every hobby creates its own conversational universe filled with stories, emotions, and experiences. Another valuable question you should learn is, what do you like to do on weekends? This question appears frequently because weekends often provide people with the freedom to pursue activities they genuinely enjoy. Unlike work-related discussions, which focus on responsibilities, weekend conversations focus on personal choice. The answers often reveal what people value most. Someone might say, I like spending time with my family, while another person might respond, I enjoy hiking and camping. Each answer opens the door to deeper exploration. When asking about weekend habits, curiosity and active listening are essential. If someone says, I usually spend my weekends reading novels, you can respond with interest by asking what genres they enjoy. If they mention traveling, you can ask about their favorite destinations. If they enjoy sports, you can ask how long they have been involved in those activities. These follow-up questions show genuine engagement and help transform simple exchanges into memorable conversations. I often encourage my students to avoid one-word answers whenever possible. For example, instead of saying, I like movies, you might say, I'm a big fan of mystery movies because I enjoy trying to solve the story before the ending. This longer response provides context and personality. It gives the other person something meaningful to react to. The more information you share, the easier it becomes for conversations to grow naturally. One of my former students struggled with small talk because he believed his hobbies were too ordinary. When people asked what he liked to do, he would simply say, nothing special. During one lesson, I encouraged him to describe his weekend routine in more detail. He eventually explained that he enjoyed taking long walks while listening to history podcasts. Suddenly, his hobby sounded interesting, unique, and memorable. That experience demonstrated that almost any activity can become an engaging conversation topic when described with enthusiasm and detail. As you become more comfortable discussing interests, you will notice that certain phrases help express different levels of enthusiasm. Saying, I like reading sounds neutral and pleasant. Saying, I'm really into reading communicates stronger interest. Saying, I'm a huge fan of historical novels suggests genuine passion. These subtle differences allow you to express yourself more accurately and make your conversations feel richer and more authentic. Cultural understanding also plays an important role here. In the United States, people often use hobbies as a way to build friendships and strengthen relationships. Invitations frequently grow out of shared interests. Two people who enjoy running may decide to exercise together. Two people who love books may exchange recommendations. Two people who enjoy music may attend a concert together. Hobbies often serve as the foundation for future social interactions. I still remember a conversation with one of my neighbors shortly after moving into a new apartment. We started with basic greetings, moved on to discussing our jobs, and eventually reached the topic of hobbies. When she mentioned that she loved gardening, I told her that I enjoyed growing herbs on my balcony. That simple exchange led to months of conversations about plants, seasons, and gardening techniques. What began as casual small talk eventually developed into a genuine friendship. There is also a psychological reason why discussing hobbies feels so enjoyable. People often associate their interests with positive emotions. When someone talks about a favorite activity, their voice may become more energetic, their facial expressions may become more animated, and their confidence may increase. This emotional shift creates a more engaging atmosphere and makes conversations feel less formal. As language learners, recognizing these emotional patterns can help you become a better communicator. Another useful phrase is in my free time. For example, you might say, in my free time, I enjoy playing guitar, or in my free time, I like exploring new cafes. This expression sounds natural because it connects hobbies to everyday life. Native speakers frequently use it when introducing personal interests. Combining this phrase with expressions such as "I'm into" or "I'm a big fan of" can make your speech sound even more fluent and conversational. As conversations continue, shared interests often lead to stories. Someone who enjoys photography may describe an unforgettable sunset they captured. Someone who loves traveling may share memories from another country. Someone who enjoys cooking may talk about a family recipe passed down through generations. These stories create emotional depth and help people connect on a more personal level. In many ways, hobbies provide the raw material for some of the most enjoyable conversations we ever have. One particularly interesting thing I have observed is that hobbies often reveal values. A person who spends weekends volunteering may value helping others. A person who enjoys painting may value creativity and self-expression. Someone who loves hiking may appreciate nature and adventure. By listening carefully to how people discuss their interests, you gain insight into what matters most to them. This understanding can make your conversations more thoughtful and meaningful. As we reach the end of today's lesson, imagine yourself speaking confidently with a new acquaintance. You have already greeted each other and discussed your professions. Now you ask, "What do you like to do on weekends?" The answer sparks curiosity, laughter, and shared stories. You discover common interests, exchange experiences, and begin forming a genuine connection. The conversation feels effortless because both people are talking about activities they genuinely enjoy. Yet there is one hobby-related topic that appears more often than almost any other. No matter where people come from, what jobs they have, or what interests they pursue, they all need to eat. Food has an extraordinary ability to bring people together. In fact, when two people discover that they are both passionate about trying new dishes, exploring restaurants, or talking about their favorite meals, the next step often becomes obvious. The conversation naturally shifts toward cafes, restaurants, menus, and dining experiences. Sometimes one person even smiles and says, "We should grab something to eat sometime." That simple invitation marks the perfect transition into the next chapter of our journey, where we will explore the language of restaurants, cafes, ordering food, and enjoying memorable meals together. As we continue our journey together, I want to begin exactly where our previous lesson ended. In part 3, we explored hobbies, passions, and the activities that bring joy to our lives outside of work. We learned how shared interests can transform strangers into friends and how conversations become more meaningful when people discover common ground. Very often, after two people realize they enjoy similar things, especially when they both love exploring new foods or talking about their favorite dishes, the conversation naturally moves toward a simple invitation. Someone smiles and says, "We should grab lunch sometime," or perhaps, "Do you want to check out that new cafe this weekend?" That moment is where today's lesson begins, because now we need the language required to navigate one of the most common social experiences in the English-speaking world, dining out at restaurants and cafes. I have always believed that restaurants are fascinating classrooms for language learners. Unlike traditional classrooms filled with textbooks and exercises, restaurants are living environments where communication has a clear purpose. People make reservations, ask questions, order meals, express preferences, solve misunderstandings, and share experiences. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to practice practical English. Throughout my years as an English teacher in the United States, I have encouraged students to view dining situations not as stressful tests, but as exciting opportunities to engage with real language in authentic settings. One of my favorite memories involves a former student who had spent months studying grammar but still felt nervous speaking English in public. One evening, a group of classmates invited her to dinner. Before entering the restaurant, she worried about making mistakes, forgetting vocabulary, and misunderstanding the waiter. By the end of the meal, however, she was smiling confidently because she had successfully ordered her food, asked questions about the menu, and participated in conversations throughout the evening. That experience taught her something important. Communication does not require perfection. It requires courage, curiosity, and a willingness to engage. The dining experience often begins before you even enter the restaurant. In many places, especially popular restaurants, customers make reservations in advance. A reservation is simply an arrangement that guarantees a table at a specific time. One of the most useful phrases you can learn is, "I'd like to make a reservation." Imagine calling a restaurant and saying, "Hello, I'd like to make a reservation for 2 people at 7 o'clock." This sentence is polite, clear, and extremely common. Understanding how to make reservations helps you navigate social situations more smoothly and demonstrates confidence in everyday communication. You may also hear the restaurant employee respond with questions such as, "For how many people?" or "What time would you like the reservation?" Learning to understand these questions is just as important as learning how to ask them. Communication is always a two-way process. The more familiar you become with these exchanges, the more comfortable you will feel when interacting with native speakers. Even a brief phone call can become valuable language practice because it requires listening carefully and responding naturally. Once you arrive at the restaurant, another set of useful interactions begins. A host or hostess may greet you with a question such as, "Do you have a reservation?" If you made one earlier, you can simply reply, "Yes, I have a reservation under Emily Carter." The phrase under is important because it refers to the name used when booking the table. If you do not have a reservation, you might say, "No, we don't have a reservation. Do you have any tables available?" This simple exchange appears frequently in real-life dining situations. After being seated, the next stage involves examining the menu and deciding what to eat. For many language learners, menus can feel overwhelming because they often contain unfamiliar vocabulary. However, this challenge presents an excellent learning opportunity. Instead of feeling intimidated, approach the menu with curiosity. If you do not understand a particular dish, you can ask questions. Native speakers do this regularly as well. Nobody expects you to know every ingredient or cooking method. One of the most practical phrases in a restaurant is, "Can you tell me more about this dish?" This question invites the server to explain ingredients, flavors, or preparation methods. Another useful expression is, "What do you recommend?" Native speakers frequently ask for recommendations when visiting unfamiliar restaurants. This question not only helps you choose a meal, but also creates a friendly interaction with the server. People generally appreciate customers who show interest and curiosity. When it is time to order, 2 phrases stand out because of their simplicity and versatility. The first is, "I'd like to order," and the second is, "Can I have?" For example, you might say, "I'd like to order the grilled salmon," or "Can I have the chicken sandwich, please?" Both expressions are polite and widely used. The phrase "I'd like" sounds slightly more formal, while "Can I have" feels slightly more casual, but both are perfectly acceptable in most dining situations. I often encourage students to pay attention to the word please because politeness plays an important role in English-speaking cultures. While omitting please may not necessarily sound rude in every situation, including it almost always creates a warmer and more respectful tone. For instance, "Can I have the pasta, please?" sounds more natural and friendly than simply saying, "Can I have the pasta?" Small details like this contribute significantly to positive communication experiences. Dining conversations frequently involve modifications and preferences as well. You may want a different side dish, fewer ingredients, or a particular cooking style. In these situations, Phrases such as, "Could I get that without onions?" Or, "Can I substitute the fries for a salad?" become extremely useful. These expressions allow you to customize your meal while maintaining politeness. Native speakers use similar language every day because personal preferences vary widely. Beyond ordering food, restaurants provide excellent opportunities for social interaction. While waiting for meals to arrive, people often discuss work, hobbies, travel experiences, and future plans. In fact, many friendships and relationships become stronger through conversations shared over meals. Food creates a relaxed atmosphere that encourages storytelling and personal connection. This is one reason dining experiences occupy such an important place in many cultures around the world. I still remember meeting an old friend for dinner after several years apart. We spent nearly 2 hours talking about life changes, career developments, and future dreams. Although the food was delicious, what I remember most clearly is the conversation. That evening reminded me that restaurants are not only places where people eat. They're places where memories are created, relationships deepen, and meaningful conversations unfold. Another valuable skill involves responding when servers ask questions. You may hear, "How is everything?" or "Are you enjoying your meal?" These questions provide opportunities to express opinions. If you are satisfied, you can respond with phrases such as, "Everything is great, thank you," or "The food is delicious." If there is a problem, you can politely explain the situation. Effective communication helps ensure positive experiences for everyone involved. Learning to describe food also enriches conversations. Common adjectives include delicious, flavorful, spicy, sweet, savory, fresh, and rich. Instead of simply saying, "The food is good," you might say, "The pasta is flavorful and perfectly cooked." More descriptive language makes conversations more engaging and helps you express yourself with greater precision. It also demonstrates growing confidence in your English abilities. Eventually, every meal reaches its conclusion. At this stage, one final piece of restaurant vocabulary becomes essential. When you are ready to leave, you need to request the bill. In American English, people commonly say, "Check, please." This short phrase is simple, direct, and widely understood. In some situations, you might also say, "Could we get the check, please?" Both versions sound natural and polite. For many learners, the word check may initially seem confusing because it has several meanings in English. However, within a restaurant context, it specifically refers to the bill that shows the total cost of the meal. Understanding context helps you interpret vocabulary accurately. This ability becomes increasingly important as your language skills continue to develop. As an English teacher, I often remind students that successful communication is not measured by the absence of mistakes. It is measured by the ability to achieve meaningful interaction. If you can make a reservation, ask about a dish, place an order, enjoy a conversation, and request the check, then you have successfully used English for a real purpose. That accomplishment deserves recognition because practical communication is the ultimate goal of language learning. Perhaps the most beautiful aspect of dining experiences is what happens after the meal ends. By the time people finish eating together, they often know each other better than they did at the beginning. Shared meals create familiarity, comfort, and trust. Laughter has been exchanged, stories have been told, and connections have grown stronger. Naturally, many people begin thinking about future opportunities to meet again. As we reach the conclusion of today's lesson, imagine yourself leaving a restaurant after an enjoyable evening. The food was excellent, the conversation flowed naturally, and both people genuinely enjoyed the experience. As you stand near the exit, neither person wants the connection to end completely. Someone might say, "We should do this again sometime." Another person might reply enthusiastically, "Absolutely." At that moment, a new challenge appears. How do you stay in touch? How do you exchange phone numbers, connect on social media, and arrange another meeting in the future? Those questions lead us naturally into the next chapter of our journey. In our next lesson, we will explore the language of making plans, sharing contact information, scheduling future activities, and building lasting connections beyond a single memorable meal. As we continue our journey together, I want to begin exactly where our previous lesson ended. In part 4, we shared meals, learned how to make reservations, order food, ask questions about dishes, and request a check at the end of a pleasant dining experience. More importantly, we discovered that conversations often become richer and more meaningful when people spend time together over food. By the time a meal ends, two people who were once strangers may feel surprisingly comfortable with one another. They have exchanged stories, laughed together, and learned about each other's interests, experiences, and personalities. Naturally, many people reach a moment when they do not want the conversation to end permanently, and that is where today's lesson begins, because maintaining connections requires a new set of communication skills. I still remember a warm summer evening in Seattle when I met a woman at a local community event. We talked about books, travel, and education for nearly 2 hours. As the event came to an end, neither of us seemed eager to simply say goodbye and walk away forever. Instead, she smiled and said, "We should stay in touch." That simple sentence represented something important. A successful conversation often creates the desire for future conversations. Language is not only about sharing ideas in the present moment, it is also about building opportunities for future interaction. One of the first skills you need in these situations is learning how to ask for contact information politely. In today's world, people often exchange phone numbers, email addresses, or social media accounts. One of the most common questions is, "Can I get your phone number?" This phrase sounds direct but friendly. Another slightly softer variation is, "Would you mind sharing your phone number?" Both expressions are widely used and generally considered polite when there is already some level of mutual comfort and trust. Social media has added another layer to modern communication. Instead of exchanging phone numbers immediately, people often connect through platforms they already use regularly. Questions such as, "Are you on Instagram?" or "Do you have Facebook?" have become extremely common. You may also hear someone ask, "Can I follow you on Instagram?" or "What's your social media handle?" Understanding these expressions helps you navigate contemporary social interactions with greater confidence and ease. The psychology behind exchanging contact information is fascinating. When someone shares a phone number or social media account, they are demonstrating a willingness to continue the relationship beyond the current interaction. It is a small act of trust. This is why timing matters. Asking too quickly may feel uncomfortable, while asking after a meaningful conversation often feels natural. Successful communication involves understanding not only vocabulary but also social dynamics and emotional context. I often tell my students that confidence and politeness should work together. Imagine that you have just finished a pleasant conversation. You might say, "I really enjoyed talking with you. Would you like to stay in touch?" This statement feels warm because it combines honesty with respect. If the other person agrees, the exchange of contact information becomes a natural next step rather than an awkward interruption. Small details like these help create smoother and more positive interactions. Once contact information has been exchanged, another important skill emerges. Maintaining relationships requires initiative. Many people exchange phone numbers, but never actually use them. To prevent this from happening, it is useful to know how to extend invitations. One of the simplest and most common expressions is, "Would you like to grab coffee sometime?" This phrase sounds casual, friendly, and flexible. It suggests interest without creating excessive pressure. Another useful expression is, Would you like to hang out sometime? In American English, the phrase hang out refers to spending time together in a relaxed and informal way. It does not necessarily imply a specific activity. Instead, it focuses on enjoying each other's company. Native speakers use this expression frequently because it feels approachable and natural. Understanding casual language like this helps conversations sound more authentic. As relationships develop, invitations often become more specific. Instead of saying sometime, people begin discussing actual dates and times. This is where phrases such as, "Are you free this Friday?" become extremely valuable. Notice how this question is direct while still remaining polite. It invites the other person to consider their schedule without making assumptions. Similar variations include, "Are you available this weekend?" And "Do you have any plans on Saturday?" All of these questions help move an idea from possibility to reality. I remember inviting one of my colleagues to a local art exhibition several years ago. Instead of vaguely suggesting that we should meet sometime, I asked, "Are you free this Saturday afternoon?" Because the question was specific, the planning process became much easier. She checked her schedule, confirmed her availability, and we quickly arranged the details. This experience reinforced an important lesson. The more specific your plans become, the more likely they are to happen. Once a date has been chosen, the next step involves deciding on a location. This is where expressions such as "let's meet at" become essential. You might say, "Let's meet at the coffee shop downtown," or "Let's meet at the park near the library." The phrase "let's meet at" provides a clear starting point and reduces confusion. Effective planning often depends on clarity, and language plays a critical role in achieving that clarity. Specific locations are particularly important in larger cities. If someone simply says, "Let's meet downtown," there may still be uncertainty about the exact meeting place. However, saying, "Let's meet at the entrance of the museum at 2 o'clock" creates a much clearer arrangement. Native speakers frequently provide detailed information when organizing plans because it minimizes misunderstandings and helps everyone feel more prepared. Another useful expression is, "What time works for you?" This question demonstrates flexibility and consideration. Rather than imposing a schedule, it invites collaboration. Communication becomes more successful when both people feel involved in the decision-making process. Questions like this show respect for the other person's time and responsibilities while encouraging cooperation. Scheduling plans also requires understanding how to accept or decline invitations gracefully. If you want to accept, you might say, "That sounds great. I'd love to," or "That works for me." These responses communicate enthusiasm and agreement. On the other hand, if you are unavailable, you can decline politely by saying, "I'm sorry, I already have plans," or "I can't make it this Friday, but maybe next week." Learning to decline politely is just as important as learning to accept because it helps preserve positive relationships. Throughout my years of teaching, I have noticed that many learners worry excessively about making invitations. They fear rejection or awkwardness. However, most people appreciate friendly invitations when they are delivered respectfully. Even if someone cannot accept immediately, a thoughtful invitation often strengthens the relationship because it demonstrates interest and kindness. Understanding this psychological reality can help reduce anxiety and build confidence. Technology has also transformed the way people coordinate plans. Text messages, messaging applications, and social media platforms allow individuals to confirm details quickly. Expressions such as, "I'll text you the address," "I'll send you the details," or "let me know if anything changes," have become common parts of modern communication. These phrases help maintain clarity and ensure that everyone remains informed. I often encourage students to practice these expressions because they appear frequently in everyday life. Whether arranging a study session, meeting a friend for lunch, attending a concert, or planning a weekend activity, the ability to coordinate effectively is incredibly valuable. These conversations may seem simple, but they play a significant role in building social connections and maintaining relationships over time. One of the most rewarding aspects of language learning is realizing that English can help create genuine opportunities rather than merely classroom exercises. Every invitation has the potential to lead to a memorable experience. Every exchanged phone number can become the beginning of a friendship. Every scheduled meeting can open the door to new stories, new perspectives, and new adventures. Language becomes meaningful when it facilitates real human connection. As we approach the end of this lesson, imagine yourself leaving a restaurant after a wonderful conversation. Instead of saying goodbye and disappearing forever, you exchange contact information. You ask, "Are you on Instagram?" You save a phone number. You suggest, "Are you free this Friday?" And confidently add, "Let's meet at the cafe near the park." The plans are made, the connection is maintained, and the relationship continues growing beyond a single interaction. However, life rarely unfolds exactly as planned. Even the best arrangements sometimes encounter unexpected obstacles. You might be heading toward a meeting place when you suddenly realize you are lost. Your phone battery may die at the worst possible moment. You may need help finding a bus station, locating a specific building, or understanding transportation directions in an unfamiliar area. In situations like these, another set of communication skills becomes absolutely essential. The ability to ask for directions, understand navigation instructions, and navigate transportation systems can transform confusion into confidence. That is precisely where our journey will continue next. In the following lesson, we will explore the language of directions, commuting, public transportation, and all the practical expressions that can help you find your way when life unexpectedly takes you somewhere unfamiliar. As we continue our journey together, I want to begin exactly where our previous lesson ended. In Part 5, we learned how to exchange contact information, connect through social media, invite people to future activities, and arrange specific times and places to meet. Those skills help relationships continue beyond a single conversation, but anyone who has ever made plans knows that reality does not always cooperate perfectly. Sometimes your phone battery dies just when you need directions. Sometimes you arrive in an unfamiliar neighborhood and suddenly realize you have no idea where to go. At other times, transportation systems seem confusing, street names blur together, and what seemed like a simple journey becomes unexpectedly stressful. Today, I want to help you navigate those situations confidently by teaching you the practical English needed for asking directions, understanding navigation, and using public transportation. I still remember one afternoon in Chicago many years ago when I became completely lost while trying to find a small bookstore. At the time, smartphone navigation was not as advanced as it is today, and I had only a handwritten address in my pocket. After wandering through several unfamiliar streets, I finally approached a stranger and asked for help. That experience reminded me that even native speakers occasionally need assistance finding their way. More importantly, it showed me that a few simple phrases can transform confusion into confidence. Knowing how to ask for directions is not just a language skill, it is a practical survival skill. One of the most important expressions you can learn is, "Excuse me, how can I get to?" This phrase is polite, clear, and universally useful. Imagine that you are trying to find a train station. You could approach someone and say, "Excuse me, how can I get to the train station?" The phrase, "excuse me," serves an important social purpose because it politely gains the other person's attention before asking for assistance. Native speakers use it frequently because it creates a respectful and friendly tone. Another common variation is, "Excuse me, where is?" For example, you might ask, "Excuse me, where is the nearest bus stop? Or, excuse me, where is the public library? These questions are slightly shorter, but equally effective. In everyday life, people often choose whichever version feels more natural in the moment. The key is remembering that politeness matters. A respectful approach usually encourages others to respond more helpfully and patiently. The psychology behind asking for directions is surprisingly interesting. Many language learners worry about bothering strangers, but most people are willing to help when approached politely. In fact, offering directions often gives people a sense of usefulness and satisfaction. Understanding this can reduce anxiety and make it easier to initiate conversations. Communication becomes much less intimidating when you realize that many people genuinely want to help. Once you ask for directions, you need to understand the responses. This is where navigation vocabulary becomes essential. One of the most common instructions you will hear is go straight. At first glance, this phrase seems simple, but it appears constantly in real-life situations. If someone says, go straight for 2 blocks, they're telling you to continue moving forward without turning. Mastering this phrase provides a strong foundation for understanding more complex directions. Another essential instruction is turn left. Imagine someone says, go straight until you reach the traffic light, then turn left. This sentence contains 2 separate actions that must be completed in sequence. Likewise, the phrase turn right appears frequently and functions in exactly the same way. The ability to recognize these directions quickly can significantly reduce confusion when navigating unfamiliar places. As an English teacher, I often encourage students to visualize directions as they listen. Instead of focusing only on individual words, imagine yourself physically moving through the environment. If someone says, turn right at the bank and continue straight, create a mental picture of that journey. Visualization strengthens comprehension. Over time, this habit makes navigation instructions easier to understand and remember. Another useful phrase is it's on your left or it's on your right. These expressions usually indicate that your destination is close. For example, someone might say, the coffee shop is on your left, just past the pharmacy. Understanding these location-based phrases helps you identify landmarks and confirm that you are moving in the correct direction. Landmarks often play an important role in navigation because they provide visual reference points. I remember helping a group of international students explore Seattle during a cultural exchange program. Many of them initially felt overwhelmed by the city's layout. However, once they learned key phrases such as go straight, turn left, turn right, and it's on your left, their confidence increased dramatically. They stopped viewing the city as a confusing maze and began seeing it as a series of understandable pathways connected by familiar instructions. Of course, directions become even more important when using public transportation. Large cities often rely heavily on buses, trains, subways, and taxis. Understanding transportation vocabulary allows you to travel more efficiently while reducing stress. One of the most useful questions is, which bus goes to downtown? This phrase helps you identify the correct route and avoid unnecessary confusion. Buses remain one of the most common forms of public transportation in many cities. You may hear people discuss bus routes, bus stops, and schedules. A useful question is, where is the nearest bus stop? Another important expression is, does this bus go to the airport? These questions help you gather information before boarding and ensure that you are heading in the right direction. Subways, known in some countries as underground systems or metro systems, require their own vocabulary. When using a subway, you may need to ask, which line should I take? Or how many stops until Central Station? Learning words such as platform, line, and station can significantly improve your ability to navigate these transportation networks. Public transportation systems often seem intimidating at first, but language helps transform complexity into clarity. Taxis provide another useful transportation option, particularly when time is limited or destinations are difficult to reach by bus or train. If you enter a taxi, you might simply say, "Could you take me to this address?" while showing the driver the location. Another common phrase is, "How long will it take to get there?" This question helps set expectations and allows you to plan more effectively. Throughout my years of traveling, I have learned that transportation conversations often involve unexpected challenges. A bus may be delayed. A train platform may change. A road may be closed due to construction. In these situations, asking questions becomes essential. Expressions such as, "Is there another way to get there?" or "What's the fastest route?" can provide valuable information and prevent unnecessary frustration. One particularly memorable experience occurred during a trip to New York City. I accidentally boarded the wrong subway train and found myself heading in the opposite direction. Rather than panicking, I approached a transit employee and politely explained the situation. Within a few minutes, I received clear instructions and successfully corrected my mistake. That experience reinforced an important lesson. Mistakes happen to everyone, but communication helps solve problems. Another useful skill involves confirming information. If someone gives you complicated directions, it is perfectly acceptable to repeat them back. You might say, "So I go straight, turn left at the bank, and then the station will be on my right, correct?" This strategy helps ensure accuracy and demonstrates active listening. Native speakers frequently use confirmation techniques because they reduce misunderstandings. The ability to ask for clarification is equally important. If you do not understand a direction, you can politely say, "Could you repeat that, please?" Or, "Could you speak a little more slowly?" These phrases are valuable because they empower you to seek understanding rather than pretending to comprehend information that remains unclear. Effective communication often involves asking for help when necessary. As your confidence grows, you will notice that navigation vocabulary appears in many contexts beyond travel. People use directional language metaphorically when explaining processes, describing plans, and organizing activities. Understanding concepts such as direction, sequence, and movement strengthens your overall language skills. Practical vocabulary often provides benefits that extend far beyond its original purpose. Perhaps the most rewarding aspect of mastering navigation English is the sense of independence it creates. The world feels larger and more accessible when you know how to ask questions, understand instructions, and move confidently through unfamiliar environments. Every successful journey reinforces your belief that communication can overcome uncertainty. This confidence gradually influences other areas of language learning as well. As we reach the end of today's lesson, imagine yourself successfully finding your way through a busy city. You have asked for directions, understood navigation instructions, boarded the correct bus, and arrived exactly where you intended to go. The anxiety of being lost has disappeared, replaced by a sense of accomplishment and confidence. Yet arriving at your destination is often only the beginning of the story. Perhaps you travel downtown to visit a clothing store, purchase a gift, or browse a local market. Suddenly, new questions emerge. How much does something cost? Do they have it in a different color? Is there a larger size available? These practical situations introduce another essential chapter of everyday communication. In our next lesson, we'll step into the exciting world of shopping, where we will learn how to discuss prices, ask about sizes and colors, compare products, and communicate confidently in stores and marketplaces. As we continue our journey together, I want to begin exactly where our previous lesson ended. In Part 6, we learned how to ask for directions, understand navigation instructions, and use public transportation with greater confidence. We followed buses, trains, and taxis through busy streets, and we discovered that clear communication can transform a confusing journey into a successful one. Eventually, after finding the right street, the correct station, or the destination we were searching for, many of us arrived somewhere with a purpose. Sometimes that purpose is meeting a friend, sometimes it is attending an event, and very often it is shopping. Today, I want to guide you through the practical English that allows you to browse stores, ask about prices, choose the right products, and complete purchases confidently in English-speaking environments. I have always found shopping to be an interesting reflection of human behavior. People do not simply buy objects. They compare options, evaluate quality, imagine future uses, and often connect purchases to emotions and memories. During my years as an English teacher in the United States, many students told me that shopping conversations felt intimidating because they happened quickly and required immediate responses. However, once they learned a handful of essential expressions, their confidence increased dramatically. What once felt stressful gradually became enjoyable because they understood how to ask questions and participate actively in the experience. One of the most important shopping questions is also one of the simplest. The phrase, "How much is this?" appears constantly in stores, markets, and shopping centers. Imagine holding a jacket and asking a store employee, "How much is this?" The question is direct, polite, and universally useful. Even in places where prices are displayed clearly, people may still ask this question to confirm details, inquire about discounts, or begin a conversation with a salesperson. Its simplicity makes it one of the first shopping expressions every learner should master. Another common variation is, "How much does this cost?" The meaning is almost identical, although the structure differs slightly. Native speakers use both expressions naturally, and understanding both will help you recognize them instantly in real-world situations. When the employee responds, you may hear prices expressed in different ways. For example, someone might say, "It's $20," or "That will be $29.99. Becoming familiar with these patterns improves both listening comprehension and conversational confidence. Price discussions often reveal an interesting psychological process. People rarely evaluate cost in isolation. Instead, they compare value, quality, and personal need. When someone hears a price, they immediately begin deciding whether the item is worth purchasing. This internal decision-making process frequently leads to additional questions. Communication becomes the bridge between curiosity and informed choices. The more effectively you can ask questions, the more confidently you can make decisions. I remember accompanying one of my international students to a shopping mall several years ago. She wanted to buy a winter coat, but felt nervous about speaking English with store employees. At first, she quietly examined the price tags without asking questions. Eventually, she gathered her courage and asked, "How much is this?" The employee responded warmly, explained a discount, and even suggested several alternatives. That small interaction transformed her experience. She realized that communication often creates opportunities that silence cannot. Beyond price, clothing stores introduce another essential category of vocabulary, size. Even if you find a shirt, jacket, or a pair of jeans that you like, the item may not fit properly. This is why the question, "Do you have this in a medium size?" becomes so useful. The phrase allows you to ask whether the same product is available in a different size while keeping the conversation polite and efficient. Native speakers use this structure regularly because inventory often varies. You can easily adapt this question to different situations. Someone might ask, "Do you have this in a large size?" while another person might ask for a smaller version. The phrase remains consistent while only the size changes. Learning flexible sentence patterns like this is one of the fastest ways to improve practical communication skills. Instead of memorizing dozens of separate sentences, you learn a structure that can be applied repeatedly in different contexts. Colors represent another important aspect of shopping conversations. A customer may love the style of a particular item but prefer a different appearance. In these situations, questions such as, "Do you have this in blue?" or "Does this come in black?" become extremely valuable. These expressions help customers explore alternatives without sounding demanding. They also encourage interaction with employees who may know about products not currently displayed on the sales floor. I often tell my students that successful shopping English relies on curiosity. The people who enjoy shopping experiences most are usually the ones who ask questions. They inquire about sizes, colors, materials, and recommendations. Rather than feeling embarrassed about needing assistance, they view store employees as valuable sources of information. This mindset makes communication more natural and often leads to better purchasing decisions. During one memorable trip to New York, I visited a bookstore looking for a specific novel. Although I searched several shelves, I could not find it. Instead of continuing to wander aimlessly, I approached an employee and asked for help. Within minutes, the book was in my hands. That experience reminded me that asking questions is not a sign of weakness. It is a practical tool that saves time, reduces frustration, and improves outcomes. As shopping conversations continue, customers frequently compare products. Someone may ask whether one item is more durable than another or whether a particular brand is known for quality. While these conversations can become more detailed, they all begin with basic communication skills. Questions about price, size, and color often create the foundation upon which more complex discussions are built. Mastering the basics, therefore, provides benefits far beyond the initial interaction. Another important moment arrives when you decide to make a purchase. After selecting the desired item, you typically proceed to the checkout area. At this stage, payment vocabulary becomes essential. One of the most common questions you will hear is, "Will you be paying with cash or card?" Understanding this question allows you to respond confidently and complete the transaction smoothly. If you prefer physical currency, you can simply say, "I'll pay with cash." This expression is straightforward and widely understood. On the other hand, if you wish to use a credit card or debit card, you can respond with, "I'll pay by card," or "I'll use my card." These phrases appear frequently in stores, restaurants, and many other commercial settings. Familiarity with them makes everyday transactions significantly easier. The shift toward electronic payments has made card-related vocabulary increasingly important. You may hear instructions such as, "Please insert your card," "Please tap your card," or "Please enter your PIN." Although the technology varies, the communication remains relatively simple. Understanding these common expressions reduces uncertainty and helps transactions proceed efficiently. Small moments like these contribute greatly to overall confidence in an English-speaking environment. I have observed that many language learners focus heavily on dramatic conversations while overlooking practical interactions. Yet, some of the most valuable communication skills involve ordinary situations. Buying groceries, purchasing clothing, paying for a book, or selecting a gift may seem routine, but these activities occur regularly in daily life. Every successful interaction reinforces language ability and creates a sense of independence. Shopping also offers excellent opportunities for cultural observation. Different countries have different expectations regarding customer service, personal space, and bargaining. In many large American retail stores, prices are usually fixed, meaning negotiation is uncommon. However, in markets and certain specialized settings around the world, bargaining may be expected. Understanding local customs helps communication feel more natural and prevents misunderstandings. One of the most rewarding aspects of shopping in another language is the sense of accomplishment it creates. There is something satisfying about entering a store, asking questions confidently, finding exactly what you need, and completing the purchase independently. Each successful experience serves as evidence that your language skills are growing. Confidence develops not through perfection, but through repeated practice in real situations. I often encourage students to view shopping trips as informal language lessons. Every sign, price tag, conversation, and receipt becomes an opportunity to learn. Vocabulary encountered in stores frequently reappears in other contexts, making it especially useful. The language of shopping is not isolated from daily life. It connects to transportation, social interaction, work, hobbies, and countless other topics we have explored throughout this journey. As we approach the conclusion of today's lesson, imagine yourself leaving a store with a shopping bag in your hand. You successfully asked, "How much is this?" You found the right size, selected the color you preferred, and completed the payment with confidence. The experience felt smooth because you possessed the language needed to navigate every stage of the process. The excitement of finding something useful or meaningful accompanies you as you step outside and begin heading home. And home is where our story naturally leads next. After a successful shopping trip, people often return to the place where they spend the greatest portion of their lives. Home is where families gather, meals are prepared, routines are established, and everyday memories are created. It is the setting for countless conversations with loved ones and the center of many daily activities. As we continue our journey together, we will leave the busy stores behind and step into a more personal environment. In the next lesson, we will explore the language of family, household relationships, daily routines, and the familiar rhythms that shape life inside the place we call home. As we continue our journey together, I want to begin exactly where our previous lesson ended. In Part 7, we explored the world of shopping, learning how to ask about prices, request different sizes and colors, and complete purchases using cash or a card. After successfully navigating stores and markets, we eventually headed back home carrying our new purchases. That return home is more significant than it may initially seem. Home is where most of our daily lives unfold. It is where we wake up, eat meals, spend time with loved ones, complete household tasks, and create the routines that quietly shape our days. Today, I want to guide you through the language of family, household life, and everyday routines because these topics appear constantly in real conversations and help us describe some of the most important parts of our lives. I have always believed that family conversations reveal a great deal about culture, personality, and values. During my years as an English teacher in the United States, I noticed that one of the first personal topics people often discuss after becoming comfortable with each other is family. Once greetings, jobs, hobbies, meals, plans, travel, and shopping have been discussed, curiosity naturally turns toward the people closest to us. Family stories help transform acquaintances into friends because they reveal experiences, relationships, and emotions that shape who we are. Understanding how to talk about family therefore allows conversations to become more meaningful and personal. One of the most useful expressions you can learn is, "Let me tell you about my family." This simple sentence creates a natural introduction to the topic. You might continue by saying, "I have one brother and one sister," or "I live with my parents." These straightforward descriptions provide essential information while inviting further questions. Native speakers frequently begin family discussions with simple facts before gradually sharing more detailed stories and experiences. Another common phrase is "this is my," which is often used when introducing relatives. Imagine showing someone a photograph and saying, "This is my mother," or "This is my younger brother." The structure remains the same regardless of which family member you're discussing. Learning this pattern makes introductions feel effortless. Because family relationships appear frequently in everyday conversation, mastering this vocabulary can significantly improve your confidence. Family discussions often include words such as mother, father, brother, sister, son, daughter, aunt, uncle, cousin, grandmother, and grandfather. While these terms may seem basic, they carry deep emotional significance. People often associate family members with important memories, traditions, and life lessons. As a result, conversations about relatives frequently become more animated and expressive. Language becomes especially meaningful when it helps us describe the people we care about most. I remember speaking with one of my students who had recently moved to the United States from another country. During one lesson, she described her family traditions with such warmth that the entire classroom became captivated. She spoke about large family dinners, holiday celebrations, and the close relationships she maintained despite living far away. Her vocabulary was not perfect, yet her message was powerful because it came from genuine emotion. That experience reminded me that meaningful communication often depends more on sincerity than perfection. Once family members have been introduced, conversations often shift toward daily routines. People naturally become curious about how others spend their time at home. Questions such as, "What do you usually do after work?" Or, "What is your typical evening like?" appear frequently in casual conversation. These questions invite descriptions of ordinary activities that reveal how life unfolds on a daily basis. One of the most common household activities is cooking. You might say, "I usually cook dinner in the evening," or "I enjoy cooking for my family on weekends." The word cook appears constantly in conversations about home life because meals occupy an important place in daily routines. Food not only provides nourishment, but also creates opportunities for family members to gather and interact. Many memorable conversations happen around kitchen tables. Cleaning is another essential part of household vocabulary. Expressions such as, "I clean the kitchen," "I vacuum the living room," or "I do the laundry on Sundays" help describe regular responsibilities. While these tasks may seem ordinary, they are central to daily life. Native speakers discuss them frequently because household maintenance affects everyone. Learning this vocabulary allows you to participate naturally in conversations about routines and responsibilities. Watching television remains another common household activity. You might say, "I usually watch TV after dinner," or "My family enjoys watching movies together on Friday nights." These simple statements reveal habits while providing opportunities for follow-up discussion. Someone may ask about favorite shows, genres, or viewing traditions. Once again, everyday activities often serve as gateways to richer conversations. I often encourage students to pay attention to routine vocabulary because it appears so frequently in real life. Words such as wake up, cook, clean, eat, watch, relax, and sleep may seem simple, but they form the foundation of countless conversations. Mastering these everyday expressions creates a strong base upon which more advanced language skills can develop. Practical communication often begins with ordinary experiences. Another important aspect of household life involves sharing responsibilities. In many homes, family members divide chores among themselves. This creates opportunities to use language related to requests and cooperation. One useful phrase is, "Could you help me with?" For example, someone might say, "Could you help me with the dishes?" This expression sounds polite and respectful while clearly communicating a need. Another common phrase is, "Can you take out the trash?" Household requests often use direct but friendly language because family members interact regularly and understand each other's routines. Similarly, someone might ask, "Can you set the table?" Or, "Could you fold the laundry?" These requests help household tasks feel collaborative rather than burdensome. Understanding such expressions is essential for everyday communication. The psychology of shared chores is surprisingly interesting. When people contribute to household responsibilities, they often feel a stronger sense of belonging and cooperation. Language plays a crucial role in maintaining this balance. Polite requests, expressions of gratitude, and clear communication help prevent misunderstandings and strengthen relationships. Even simple phrases such as "thank you for helping" can have a significant positive impact. I still remember growing up in a household where everyone had responsibilities. My parents encouraged cooperation rather than perfection. If someone cooked dinner, another person might wash the dishes. If one family member cleaned the living room, another might organize the kitchen. These experiences taught me that household routines are not merely practical necessities. They are opportunities to build teamwork and strengthen family bonds. Expressions of appreciation are equally important within the home. After receiving help, people often say, "Thanks for your help," or "I appreciate it." These phrases acknowledge effort and reinforce positive relationships. Native speakers use them frequently because gratitude contributes to healthy communication. Small expressions of appreciation often have a larger emotional impact than people realize. Beyond chores and routines, home is also where people relax and recover from the demands of daily life. After work, school, shopping trips, and social activities, many individuals look forward to spending quiet time with loved ones. Conversations at home often feel less formal and more comfortable than those that occur elsewhere. This relaxed atmosphere encourages honesty, storytelling, and emotional connection. During my teaching career, I noticed that students often became most confident when discussing home life. Even learners with limited vocabulary could describe family members, daily routines, and household activities because these experiences were familiar and meaningful. Familiarity reduces anxiety and makes communication feel more natural. This is one reason why family-related topics appear so frequently in language learning materials around the world. The beauty of household vocabulary lies in its universality. While cultures differ in traditions, customs, and lifestyles, nearly everyone understands the concepts of family, meals, chores, and daily routines. These shared experiences create common ground between people from different backgrounds. Language allows us to explore both the similarities and differences that make human life so fascinating. As we reach the end of today's lesson, imagine yourself returning home after a busy day. Perhaps you place your shopping bags on the table, greet your family members, prepare a meal, complete a few household tasks, and spend the evening relaxing together. Through these ordinary moments, you use English to describe relationships, routines, responsibilities, and daily experiences. The language feels practical because it reflects real life. Every conversation helps strengthen your ability to communicate naturally and confidently. Yet, even within the comfort of home, our attention eventually drifts beyond the walls around us. We look through windows, step outside, or check the forecast for the next day. We notice sunshine, rain, wind, clouds, and changing temperatures. These external conditions influence our moods, plans, and daily decisions more than we often realize. From small conversations around the house, our perspective naturally expands back toward the wider world. In the next chapter of our journey, we will explore the language of weather, emotions, and everyday observations about the environment around us, discovering how something as simple as a sunny day or an approaching storm can become the beginning of a meaningful conversation. As we continue our journey together, I want to begin exactly where our previous lesson ended. In Part 8, we stepped into the heart of everyday life by talking about family members, household routines, chores, and the simple moments that shape our days at home. We explored the language people use when describing cooking dinner, cleaning the house, watching television, and spending time with loved ones. Yet no matter how comfortable and familiar our homes may be, our lives are never completely separated from the world outside. Every morning, before deciding what to wear, where to go, or what activities to plan, we often do one simple thing. We look outside the window. The weather quietly influences our routines, our decisions, and even our emotions. Today, I want to guide you through one of the most universal conversation topics in the English-speaking world, the weather, and show you how it naturally connects to feelings, moods, and human connection. I have always found it fascinating that weather conversations appear almost everywhere in American culture. A stranger waiting at a bus stop may comment on the temperature. Coworkers entering an office often begin conversations by mentioning the forecast. Neighbors passing each other on the sidewalk frequently exchange a few words about sunshine, rain, wind, or snow. At first glance, these exchanges may seem unimportant, but they serve a valuable social purpose. Weather provides a safe, shared topic that almost everyone can relate to regardless of age, background, profession, or personal beliefs. Because of this universality, weather often becomes the perfect doorway into longer conversations. One of the most common weather expressions is, "It's a beautiful day." This simple sentence communicates both an observation and a feeling. The speaker is not merely describing sunshine or pleasant temperatures. They are also expressing appreciation for the environment around them. Similarly, you may hear people say, "It's freezing today," when temperatures are extremely cold. The word freezing adds emotional emphasis and creates a more vivid picture than simply saying cold. Native speakers frequently use expressive weather vocabulary because it makes conversations more engaging and colorful. Another extremely useful phrase is, "It looks like rain." Notice that this expression does not guarantee rain. Instead, it communicates a prediction based on visible signs such as dark clouds or changing conditions. Native speakers use this phrase regularly because weather is often uncertain. Similar expressions include, "It looks like it's going to storm," or "I think it might rain later." Learning these predictive phrases helps you participate naturally in everyday small talk. Weather vocabulary becomes especially powerful because it allows people to share experiences. Imagine standing outside on a cold winter morning and hearing someone say, "It's freezing today." Even if you know very little about that person, you immediately understand the experience they are describing because you are experiencing it too. This shared reality creates a subtle sense of connection. Small talk may seem insignificant, but it often serves as the first step toward deeper communication. I remember one snowy morning in Chicago when I was waiting for public transportation. The temperature was brutally cold, and everyone at the bus stop looked slightly miserable. An elderly woman beside me smiled and said, "It's freezing today, isn't it?" That simple observation led to a conversation about winter, travel, and favorite holiday traditions. By the time the bus arrived, several strangers had become temporary companions connected by a shared experience. Moments like that remind me that language often begins with simple observations. Beyond describing weather conditions, English offers a rich collection of vocabulary for different environmental situations. You may hear words such as sunny, cloudy, windy, rainy, stormy, humid, chilly, and foggy. Each word paints a specific picture. A sunny day feels very different from a stormy one. A chilly morning creates a different atmosphere than a humid afternoon. Understanding these distinctions helps you describe the world with greater precision and confidence. One useful habit is combining weather descriptions with personal reactions. Instead of simply saying, "It's sunny," you might say, "It's sunny today, and it puts me in a good mood." This approach transforms a factual statement into a personal one. It reveals something about your emotions while encouraging further conversation. Native speakers often connect weather observations to their feelings because doing so makes communication more engaging and relatable. The relationship between weather and mood is surprisingly powerful. Research has shown that environmental conditions can influence energy levels, motivation, and emotional states. While these effects vary from person to person, many people recognize that bright sunshine often feels uplifting while prolonged gray skies can sometimes feel draining. Because weather affects emotions, conversations about weather frequently evolve into conversations about personal experiences and feelings. One of the most useful expressions in this context is, I feel. For example, you might say, I feel energetic when the weather is sunny, or I feel relaxed when it rains. The phrase, I feel, allows you to express emotions clearly and naturally. It helps move conversations beyond external observations and into more personal territory. This transition is important because meaningful communication often involves sharing both facts and feelings. I often encourage my students to practice linking weather vocabulary with emotional vocabulary. Consider a sentence such as, it's cloudy today and I feel a little tired. Or perhaps, the cool breeze makes me feel refreshed. These combinations sound natural because they reflect the way people genuinely experience the world. We do not simply observe weather. We react to it emotionally, physically, and psychologically. Another common weather-related conversation involves future plans. Someone might say, if the weather stays nice, I'm going for a walk later. Another person may respond, I hope it doesn't rain because I have outdoor plans. In these situations, weather becomes part of decision-making. The conversation naturally expands beyond current conditions and begins influencing future activities. This demonstrates how practical weather vocabulary can be in everyday life. I remember planning a picnic with friends one spring afternoon. The forecast predicted sunshine, but dark clouds began appearing unexpectedly. Throughout the day, everyone kept discussing the weather. Some people remained optimistic while others became concerned. Eventually, the skies cleared, the picnic proceeded, and the experience became a memorable reminder of how often weather influences social plans. Even simple gatherings can depend heavily on environmental conditions. Weather also provides opportunities to express preferences. You might say, I love warm weather, or I prefer cool temperatures. Some people enjoy rainy days because they find them peaceful and relaxing. Others feel happiest under clear blue skies. Sharing preferences allows conversations to become more personal while revealing aspects of personality. These exchanges often lead to stories about favorite seasons, travel experiences, and childhood memories. Seasonal vocabulary frequently appears alongside weather discussions. People talk about spring flowers, summer heat, autumn leaves, and winter snow. Each season carries its own emotional associations and cultural traditions. In many parts of the United States, for example, autumn is associated with colorful landscapes, while winter often brings holiday celebrations. Understanding these seasonal connections helps you engage more naturally in cultural conversations. Another important communication skill involves responding to someone else's emotional statements. If a friend says, "This rainy weather makes me feel gloomy," you might respond with empathy by saying, "I know what you mean." If someone says, "I love sunny days because they make me feel energetic," you could reply, "I feel the same way." These responses create emotional connection and demonstrate active listening. Conversations become stronger when people acknowledge and relate to each other's experiences. Throughout my teaching career, I have observed that many learners underestimate the importance of weather conversations. They assume that discussing the forecast is too simple or unimportant to deserve attention. However, weather small talk appears constantly in daily life. More importantly, It often serves as a gateway to broader discussions about emotions, routines, preferences, and plans. Mastering this topic, therefore, provides benefits far beyond weather itself. As your confidence grows, you will notice that weather conversations require many of the skills we have developed throughout this journey. You greet people politely, ask questions, listen carefully, express opinions, share experiences, and connect emotionally. In many ways, weather discussions bring together numerous communication tools that we have explored across previous lessons. They demonstrate how language works as an interconnected system rather than a collection of isolated topics. As we reach the conclusion of today's lesson, imagine yourself standing outside on a beautiful afternoon. You exchange a few words about the weather with someone nearby. The conversation expands naturally into a discussion about plans, feelings, and personal experiences. You no longer struggle to find words because you possess the vocabulary needed to describe both the world around you and the emotions within you. That confidence represents a significant milestone in your language learning journey. When you can comfortably discuss your family, your work, your hobbies, your daily routines, the weather, and your feelings, you are no longer a hesitant beginner searching desperately for words. You have become someone capable of participating in genuine human conversations. Yet one final skill remains before our journey is complete. Every meaningful conversation eventually reaches an ending. Knowing how to leave gracefully, express appreciation, and wish others well is just as important as knowing how to begin. In the next and final chapter of our book, we will explore the language of goodbyes, polite departures, and warm wishes, learning how to end conversations in a way that leaves people looking forward to the next time they hear from you. As we continue our journey together, I want to begin exactly where our previous lesson ended. In Part 9, we explored one of the most universal conversation topics in the English-speaking world, the weather, and we discovered how simple observations about sunshine, rain, wind, and changing seasons often become gateways to deeper discussions about emotions, preferences, and daily experiences. By this point in our journey, we have learned how to greet strangers, introduce ourselves, discuss jobs, share hobbies, enjoy meals together, make plans, navigate cities, shop confidently, talk about family life, and express our feelings about the world around us. We have gradually built a complete framework for real-world communication. Yet every meaningful conversation, no matter how enjoyable, eventually reaches a natural conclusion. Today, I want to teach you the final and often overlooked skill that completes the communication cycle, the art of ending a conversation gracefully, warmly, and memorably. I have always believed that people tend to focus heavily on how conversations begin, while paying far less attention to how they end. Most language learners spend countless hours practicing greetings, introductions, and common questions, but relatively little time learning how to leave a conversation politely. However, first impressions and last impressions are often the most powerful moments in any interaction. The way a conversation ends can determine how people remember the entire experience. A warm, respectful farewell leaves others feeling appreciated, while an awkward or abrupt departure can unintentionally create distance. Because of this, learning how to say goodbye properly is just as important as learning how to say hello. One of the most useful expressions for ending a conversation is, "I'd better get going." This phrase communicates that you need to leave while maintaining a friendly and respectful tone. Notice that it sounds softer and more natural than simply saying, "I have to leave." The phrase suggests necessity without sounding cold or abrupt. Imagine that you have been chatting with a colleague after work. Instead of suddenly walking away, you might smile and say, "I'd better get going. I have an early meeting tomorrow." This explanation helps the other person understand your departure and keeps the interaction positive. Another common expression is, I should probably head out. The meaning is very similar, but the tone feels slightly more casual. Native speakers often use this phrase when speaking with friends, classmates, or acquaintances. For example, after spending an enjoyable afternoon at a coffee shop, someone might say, I should probably head out before traffic gets too bad. The phrase communicates both the intention to leave and the reason behind the decision. Such small details make conversations feel more natural and considerate. The psychology behind polite departures is fascinating. Human beings generally appreciate closure. Just as stories benefit from satisfying endings, conversations also feel more complete when participants acknowledge that the interaction is coming to an end. A thoughtful farewell signals respect and gratitude. It shows that the conversation mattered enough to deserve a proper conclusion. This emotional aspect explains why certain goodbye phrases feel warmer and more memorable than others. I remember attending a professional conference several years ago where I met dozens of people throughout the day. Some conversations ended abruptly because participants simply disappeared when they became distracted. Others concluded with genuine warmth and appreciation. Interestingly, I remembered the second group far more clearly. The individuals who said things like, it was great talking with you, or I hope we can stay in touch, left stronger impressions because their departures felt intentional rather than accidental. Their language created a sense of connection that lasted beyond the conversation itself. One of the most valuable farewell expressions in English is, it was nice talking to you. This sentence acknowledges the positive nature of the interaction while expressing appreciation for the other person's time and attention. You can use it after meeting someone for the first time, after a casual conversation, or even after a more formal discussion. Because it is both polite and versatile, it appears constantly in everyday communication. Learning to use it naturally can significantly improve your conversational skills. A similar phrase is, it was great meeting you. While it was nice talking to you focuses on the conversation itself, it was great meeting you emphasizes the introduction and the new connection. Imagine attending a social event where you meet someone interesting. As the evening ends, saying, it was great meeting you communicates that you value the encounter and appreciate the opportunity to connect. Such expressions help transform brief interactions into memorable experiences. Another important aspect of ending conversations involves expressing future intentions. People often say, I hope to see you again soon, or let's catch up sometime. These phrases suggest that the relationship may continue beyond the current interaction. Even when no specific plans exist, such expressions communicate openness and goodwill. They reassure the other person that the conversation was enjoyable and worth repeating in the future. Throughout my teaching career, I have encouraged students to view farewell expressions as opportunities rather than obligations. Instead of seeing goodbyes as endings, consider them bridges to future interactions. A warm farewell keeps communication channels open and encourages future conversations. In many ways, the quality of a goodbye influences whether a relationship continues to grow. Language has the power not only to initiate connections, but also to sustain them. Once you have indicated that you are leaving and expressed appreciation, the final step often involves offering good wishes. This part of the conversation may seem simple, but it carries significant emotional value. One of the most common expressions is take care. These two words communicate concern, kindness, and goodwill. They suggest that you genuinely hope the other person remains safe, healthy, and happy. Because of its warmth and simplicity, this phrase is widely used across many different situations. Another popular expression is, have a good one. Native speakers use this phrase frequently because it is flexible and informal. Depending on the context, it may refer to the rest of the day, the evening, the weekend, or any upcoming period of time. For example, after paying for groceries or finishing a conversation with a coworker, you might hear someone say, "Have a good one." The phrase feels friendly without being overly formal. Other useful expressions include "have a great day," "enjoy your weekend," and "have a safe trip." These farewell wishes often relate directly to the other person's immediate plans. If someone is traveling, wishing them a safe journey feels thoughtful. If the weekend is approaching, wishing them an enjoyable weekend feels appropriate. Tailoring good wishes to the situation demonstrates attentiveness and strengthens interpersonal connections. I often tell my students that farewell wishes function like emotional gifts. They cost nothing, require only a few words, and yet they can leave lasting positive impressions. Imagine ending a conversation by sincerely saying, "Take care and have a wonderful weekend." Even though the phrase is simple, it communicates warmth and respect. Such small gestures contribute significantly to positive social interactions. One of my favorite memories involves a former student who initially struggled with English conversation. During our first lessons, she focused so intensely on grammar that she often forgot to end conversations naturally. Over time, she learned to use farewell expressions with confidence. Several years later, she told me that one of the biggest differences in her communication style was not vocabulary or pronunciation, but her ability to leave conversations gracefully. She had discovered that people responded positively when interactions ended with warmth and consideration. As we reflect on everything we have learned throughout this journey, it becomes clear that communication is not merely about exchanging information. It is about building relationships. Greetings help open doors. Questions invite exploration. Shared stories create understanding. Expressions of gratitude strengthen connections. Goodbyes provide closure while preserving opportunities for future interaction. Every stage of a conversation serves an important purpose within the larger process of human connection. Think about how far we have traveled together. We began with simple greetings and introductions. We learned how to discuss work, hobbies, food, plans, transportation, shopping, family, routines, weather, and emotions. Each lesson built upon the previous one, creating an increasingly rich and flexible communication toolkit. What once may have felt like isolated vocabulary words has gradually become an interconnected system for navigating real-life conversations with confidence. The most rewarding aspect of language learning is not mastering grammar rules or memorizing vocabulary lists. It is reaching the point where communication feels natural. It is being able to meet a new person, sustain an engaging conversation, share experiences, discuss everyday life, and leave the interaction feeling connected rather than anxious. Language becomes truly meaningful when it enables genuine human relationships. That transformation is the ultimate goal of everything we have studied together. As we arrive at the end of this final chapter, imagine yourself finishing a pleasant conversation with someone you have just met. You smile and say, "I'd better get going." You follow with, "It was really nice talking to you." Then, before leaving, you add, "Take care and have a great day." The conversation ends naturally, warmly, and confidently. There is no awkward silence, no uncertainty, and no abrupt departure. Instead, there is mutual respect and positive energy. This warm goodbye serves as the final piece of the communication journey we have shared throughout these 10 lessons. It closes the circle that began with a simple greeting and developed into a complete system of real-world English interaction. Yet this ending is not truly an ending at all. In many ways, it is a beginning. Every greeting you offer, every question you ask, every story you share, and every goodbye you deliver from this moment forward becomes part of your own communication journey. The lessons may be complete, but the conversations that await you are only just beginning. So take everything you have learned, step confidently into the world, connect with people around you, and remember that every meaningful relationship starts with a few simple words and grows through the courage to keep the conversation alive. Before you leave, I want you to remember one thing. The person who started this lesson is not exactly the same person who is finishing it right now. Maybe you've learned a few new words, maybe you've understood a few new expressions, or maybe you've gained a little more confidence than you had before. No matter how small it seems, that's progress. And progress, repeated day after day, is what eventually creates fluency. One day, you will find yourself having a conversation in English without fear. One day, you will understand movies more easily. One day, you will speak naturally without translating every sentence in your head. That future version of yourself is being built right now, through lessons like this and through your decision to keep going when others give up. If you want me to continue creating long, immersive English lessons like this, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and leave a comment below. Your support helps this channel grow and allows me to create even more free content for learners around the world. Thank you for learning with me today. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you know that I'm proud of the effort you're making. Keep learning, keep practicing, and keep moving forward. Your English journey is just getting started, and I can't wait to see you in the next lesson.